What's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning into my channel again at the BI Edge today. What I'm looking at is petroleum and gas reserves here. So this data set for Queensland was extracted from the Queensland Open Data Portal. I've opened up Power Query Editor here, and what I'm trying to do is I'm going to I want to work out the value here for the gas reserves or the petroleum reserves for each year on average, and it comes out, half yearly here. So as at the 30th of the 6th, 2016, and so forth, okay, and it goes to 2019. All right. So the way I would work this out is I need to try and find the historical archives, which I have here, and then I need to find from sort of 2020 to 2024 or the 25 or whatever the most recent is, connect these data sets together. I would do that here through append at the top of the screen here. So I'll just get it home and you go, yeah, sorry, append queries there. Okay. And then you would append queries and you'd load the other data set here. Okay. But the first thing that I want to do today is I want to clean this up a little bit and just see how it looks, okay, just with this historical based data. So first thing is first, I don't really worry. I'm not going to be too concerned about the ID here because I want to know who the authorized holder is or the operator. We're going to call it operator just so it's consistent with our other data sets. Permit number. So permit, I'll call that permit slash lease number. Okay. So that way we can match lease numbers across data sets here in the form of a schema. Or if we can't use a schema, because we're not going to upload it to SQL or Power Pivot. We're not going to use Power. If we don't use Power Pivot, then you can just do two different pivot tables next to one another and connect, depending on how much data that you're looking at. The most efficient way to connect this would be through a schema via probably BigQuery in this instance. All right, so if we're looking across the page here now, okay, so I've got these first two columns here. So what I want to do is realistically, I need to add a column, okay? So I need the 30th of the 6th, 2016, okay? So first one is I need this, and I need to add that with this, and then I have to divide that by 2, okay, to get the annual amount for 2016. So I'm just going to go 2016. Here is the new column. I go, okay, bang, okay, there's 2016 here. So now I have that. What I can do is I can now get rid of these two columns and I can go on to the next one here, okay? So this is sort of a good way to sort of go about this here. It seems that we have some duplicate values across some of these columns, whether that's that they were producing the same or that's all they produced for that particular year. That could be an interesting sort of topic for discussion here because the way this looks to me is the formula that I've just done is potentially it's potentially correct, but I would need to ask a technical expert to know for sure, is that what was produced here? And then is this the same value because it didn't produce any more in this second half of the year? Or did it produce exactly the same amount again in the second half of the year? I would say, off the top of my head that, wouldn't have produced exactly the same amount each time, but I don't know there. So in this case, you would have to ask somebody who understands this data. And this is where a data analyst would need to collaborate with someone who works with petroleum and gas reserves, so maybe an engineer in the petroleum-based industry to get the answer here. But yes, that's sort of what we've got there. Plus here again, divided by 2, 2017. Okay, done. So 2017's done there. Okay, so even if I am duplicating the values here, and it's not producing as much, it'll still give us an overall idea of what lease numbers are producing the most in this particular region. So if I go here again, just going to add this together for 2018 now, and then divide it by 2 because it's 2 halves of the year. Okay, and that is 2018. All right, so we've got 2018 there now. Okay, I want to remove these rows here just to clean this up a bit. Okay, and then we've got 2019 here. So this will be the last one we do. We go custom column. We go 2019 plus 2019 divided by 2. Okay, and then you would go 2019 here. Okay. All right. So I've just thought of something. If the way this looks to me is that's how much was produced at the 30th of June 2019, and then this is how much it had produced on the 31st of the 12th, 2019. Because if you look down here, this one here had produced 23.821, and then here it went up to 33.7478. Okay, so if we're looking down here at consistency, that's gone up, that's gone up. Okay, but it's that could be. It looks like it's kind of more of a, because we're looking at the values here. It's probably not going to change it too much in terms of if I've over predicted it or not. But once again, that's something as a data analyst you want to put your hand up, ask your manager, ask a technical expert. If your manager's not available, ask somebody within the organization on what you'll be looking for there. If I'm, working with a client freelance, for example, I would go back to the business and just clarify, the numbers and ask a few questions about the data set. This is obviously a little bit harder because we're just pulling data from the internet here with not a lot of context, and we're drawing our own interpretations. But the first thing when you're looking at data is you always want to ask the business questions regarding the data. So, because that is important. What are we looking for? What's the meaning behind the data? Where was it retrieved from? How was it retrieved? All these sort of questions just allow for a more accurate analysis. Okay, so what I want to do now is actually want to round here. So I can go down here to transform, and then I go round, and I just want to round. Okay, so I want to round these numbers, and it'll come up here with how many decimal places. I'm going to say 0. Okay, and I'm just going to round it all up just to make it clean here. All right, okay, so we can see there's quite a few null values here in these columns. The thing is with that, if I remove the null values out of these columns, some of them might have not been producing here in 2016, for example, but they started producing a little bit later here. For example, this one here started producing in 2019. So I'm just going to leave those null values there today for this, because we can still make a pretty good interpretation from it. Okay, so we go close and load next. Okay, and I just updated what I already had here, so that helps. Okay, cool. All right, so cool. All right, so here now we can sort of have a bit of a look. All right, so I can filter out the nulls here if I want to kind of get into that. But the first thing I want to do now is I want to come back here and have a look at my Queensland Petroleum analysis again. So this is what I had in the last video I did on the Queensland petroleum industry. So over here, we can see the approved year, the expiry year, the length of leasehold, and the lease title versus the operator. So we have this data set. Now what we need to do is we have to connect that with this data set here, okay? Because what that does is that uncovers more information it uncovers more information surrounding each one of these permit lease numbers. So we kind of know, okay, who's the operator or the title holder, what field is it in, the reservoir, what did it sort of produce here in terms of gas each year. So who's the top producer here in gas, which fields are producing the most, because if you're providing service to the mining industry, then they're the operators that you would be targeting from a sales-based perspective. Okay, so we've got that now. So what I can do is this, as I said, there's two ways to do this. If you're just a basic analyst, you might just go, okay, well, I've got that here. I'm going to save this. So I've saved that. The basic analyst would come in here and they would go, okay, well, I haven't built out that dashboard yet. That's okay. They'd come in, they'd add a new sheet here. All right. And what they would do is they would go to data and they would look to establish a connection. Okay, so you can see we've got one connection there at the moment. Okay, so what we now need to do is we need to go to recent sources. No, existing connections. Okay, and I'm going to go browse for more. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to find the workbook that I was just using, which is under Queensland Petroleum. Okay, and if I go date modified, see it there, petroleum gas reserves through Power Query. Okay, and I can now connect this data source here. So I go okay, and we're just going to do a table here. Existing worksheet's fine. All right, so I've now pulled this across, okay? So that data set that we were just looking at, that we just cleaned up in Power Query is now here in our Queensland Petroleum Leases spreadsheet, okay? So we now have, we'll call this gas production, okay? So I've now got and this is all connected, so if I update the other workbook, all I have to do is refresh here, and this comes directly straight across. Okay, now you could just go new workbook and go into Power Pivot and connect the two data sets. That's the best way to do it if you're working for a business or enterprise. If you're not as sure working within Power Pivot, you would probably just come in this way here and you just go insert a pivot table from range here. Okay, and you go existing worksheet. You might just do it here. Okay, for example, go okay. Okay, so we've got one there for petroleum leases, and then we want to go here, insert another pivot. Okay, we go existing workbook again, and we come over here, and we might just chuck it here. Okay, and we've got one here. So we've got our two data sets here, and we can just compare side by side. Okay, so you could go, your lease title and your operator here. Okay, and then you just start cleaning this up. So you would go here. Okay, and then what we want to do is, I think block size is probably the most important variable here that you kind of really want to know. And then over here you go show in tabular. Okay, so there it is, the lease size by operator here. Now I probably also go, yeah, I'll probably do lease up the top here because that's the easiest way to probably copy the two out. So I've got this one here. I'm going to bring it a bit closer now. So it's going to Control X, bring it across the page. All right, so we're going to go operator here next, okay, and then we're going to do the permit lease number. All right, and here what we are going to do is we are going to look at, the production amount by year, okay. So first thing I've noticed here is I probably should have done total for the production over that period in Power Query, because that would have determined who was the largest. I can sort of bring that in here a bit later. That's okay, but I would just bring it out like that. Okay. So now what I can do is if somebody goes, oh, hey, what have we got on lease? We'll go P 1122 here. Okay, I can go, right, that's Santos Limited, 374 as a block size. Okay, and what was it, PL 112, I think it was. So I go here, PL 112. Oh, there it is there, PL. Okay, and then we go 1122. Okay, we don't have any information there. So it's most likely not producing or it didn't produce within that period. Sometimes it can be like that. No, okay, that's all right. So, we can sort of have a bit of a look there. So we'll look at the next one, we'll look at PL 100, okay? So Santos Toga Proprietary Limited, PL 100. Okay, there they are there. All right, cool. So I know here now that on PL 100, there's two different operators, and this is the total size of the block here, okay? But it hasn't produced anything. So these are little insights that I can uncover here pretty quickly straight away. All right. Now, the most efficient way to do this is going through Power Pivot. Sometimes you'll get good relationships through Power Pivot, sometimes you won't. It just really kind of depends on, whether the data connects or not, one-to-many relationships, many-to-many relationships, etc. So if I just come across here next, I'm just going to save this and get out. Okay. All right. So if we're going to do Power Pivot, this is how you do it. You go Manage. Okay. You brings up the model screen. Now I can't go give you a really good example here because I'm on the Microsoft individual user license. You need the business license to be able to unlock the full features here with Power Pivot, but I'll give you an example of how to sort of set it up. So from here, what you want to do is you want to go from other sources, okay, Excel file, next, okay, so I'm going to go use first row as column headers because otherwise it messes up your data. Okay, so the first one here is my petroleum gas reserves Power Query. Okay, I want to go next. So this is my workbook here. Now this can sometimes get a bit confusing if you've got pivots and other things in your workbook, but we've got our 183 rows, so we know we're good there. We can see that it's all pretty neat and tidy here. All right, so we know that that's good to go. Okay, so if I go data view now, I can see that that's now here in our model. Okay, so that one's pretty good to go. So what I need to do now is I need to go from sources again, okay, and I need to go and I need to find the other side of this, okay? So we need to go out of this and we need to go into this uh, Queensland Petroleum Leases Power Query. I go next. All right, so you can see here I've got all these um, different sort of sheets here to select from. So it was under petroleum leases, I believe, because the gas production, that's the same as that. I could have just done it off this individual sheet here. Okay, so if I go here, 334, that sounds right. I'll have a look. Okay, cool. All right. And now you can see here that I've got two different spreadsheets and I can look to connect here across and form relationships between the two. Okay, so I can connect the lease titles together and then that unlocks the information here. Okay, and I don't think it'll let me connect any more here, but that kind of just gives you an idea as to how it works. So I've connected operator there as well. And I'm going to look at block size if it'll let me do that. All right, cool. And maybe we'll get block size to operator too. Okay, no, that's all right. All right, so now what I want to do is go to pivot table, new worksheet. All right, so we are now looking at, okay, the operator. We're going to look at the permit lease number. I might just leave for a second. Okay, and I'm going to go down for block size. Okay, so you see how I'm now using the operator for one data set to get the block size from another data set here. Okay, and this is why Power Pivot is so powerful because you can now bring those variables from one data set and connect it into another data set to build a much more effective dashboard and to uncover your insights. Okay, so the more data sets that I acquire from the Queensland petroleum industry, the more informed I'm going to be when determining data-driven decisions to scale a business and formulate a competitive advantage in a business. Okay, so data is everything. It's the truth. It's the way forwards for business, in my opinion. And these tools are on the forefront of an ever-changing world with AI adoption and implementation in business. All right, so what I want to do now is I'm going, okay, that's good. I've got that information. Let's see if I can look at, um, let's have a look at the production 2019. Cool. So now I know who's producing in 2019 out of these companies. Okay, so I can then go here and I can go sort by, let's go here, sort options, descending by operator by 2019. Okay, so I can now see that Santos Limited produced the most in 2019 here in Queensland. Okay, and this is their total block size. Now, Armour Energy have got quite a big block size there, so I'd be really interested to see the latest data in terms of what they've done. And then there's some unknown players here, which you wouldn't know who that belongs to, but so that would be another one to sort of find out there. If I want to kind of like, let's just backtrack this a little bit now. We are going to go to 2017 and just add these in here to the table. All right, cool. All right, so from here now, I can sort of start to have a bit of a look at, okay, what's the consistency been like across these? Okay, if I go here to permit number next, I can see all the different leases per operator here. Okay, so that kind of just changes that up a little bit there. But a good one for leases would just be to filter it at the top here and then kind of bring it out and select as you go through and compare across different leases to uncover, what operators are producing within the Queensland petroleum-based market. All right, guys. So hopefully that kind of helps you a little bit there, gives you a couple of insights, a bit long-winded from me, but it's never, 2, 3 minutes with data. I mean, if you really want to unleash the power, you've got to go into the details, you've got to be curious, you've got to build the models, and this is what goes into it. If you like the video, hit the subscribe and the thumbs up button, and I really appreciate you all. Cheers.